The plainness of enlightenment. Enlightenment is not a doctrine. It is not Jesus, Buddha, or Muhammad. When you become enlightened, it can come about through a very small or ordinary thing. You see, the most difficult thing for someone to accept is the plainness of their life. To discover magnificence in every moment of a simple life is truly life's greatest reward. The search for the truth of life is very much like mountain climbing. Your view is determined by how high you have reached. When people reach the top of the mountain, they have to shout to their fellow climbers, "I have reached the top of the mountain. I have arrived at the summit." But if they would only look over their shoulder, they would see another, higher mountain, then another, and yet another beyond that. Finally, one realizes that the hardest mountain to climb is the plainness of one's own mind. But who can accept that? Everyone is busy climbing all the external mountains for external or even internal self-recognition. No one is satisfied with a plain life. They are always struggling to improve their situation, and the more they struggle, the more they deviate from their real nature. The more information gathered, the more attention attracted. The more wealth accumulated, the more distorted the beauty of an honest heart. It is like too much makeup on your face, making who you really are more and more remote. When you were in the cradle, you had no knowledge, no wealth, no cosmetics. What was wrong with you then? Now that you've spent all these years accumulating information, wealth, and the other trappings of life, I ask you, are you happier now? Are you improved? Or are you still crying to have someone change your diapers? Self-reliance. This is a great, powerful statement from some spiritually achieved ones. My life depends on me, not on heaven. Excessively religious people may think those people had no God, but I don't see it that way. I think that these were spiritually self-responsible people who did not rely on external authority to make themselves behave correctly. They did not relinquish authority over their lives to other people and external circumstances, trading in heaven's support to become dependent on others. They did what was right and depended upon their own attainment and achievement to see them through life. This kind of achievement is called spiritual independence, and it is up above the realm of ordinary religious followers. I regard it as a highly respected elucidation of the way. God. It is important to know and see the entire universe as one being. The organs of a spiritually achieved person develop their own spiritual energy and spiritual entities, but they all make up one complete spiritual being. It is the same in the universe. You and I are supported by the same universal spiritual energy. The whole thing is God. There is no separate God in the realm of integral truth. Solid ground. People have strong faith in religions and hold on tight, and they do not notice that there is safe, dry ground already under their feet, where they need to stand firmly. Why? If only I had known there was solid ground beneath, I could have spared myself this whole ordeal. The way to go. For worldly problems and complications, there is only one way to go. What I care about is the natural path which goes beyond skill. When I first began cutting oxen, all I could see was the ox itself. After 3 years, I no longer saw the whole ox. Now I go at it through intuition. Perception and understanding have come to a stop, and intuition moves where it wants. I go along with the natural construction, strike in the big hollow places, guide the knife through large openings, and follow things as they are. So I never touch the smallest ligament or tendon, much less the main joints. A good cook changes knives once a year because he cuts. A mediocre cook changes his once a month because he hacks. I have had this knife of mine for 19 years, and I've cut thousands of oxen with it, yet the blade is as good as new. For there are spaces between the joints, and the blade of the knife is just as if it had no thickness really. If you insert what has no thickness into such spaces, then there's plenty of room, more than enough for the blade to play about. And after 19 years, the blade of my knife is still as good as when it first came from the grindstone. However, whenever I come to a complicated spot, I size up the difficulties, tell myself to watch out and be careful, keep my eyes on what I'm doing, work very slowly, and move the knife with the greatest subtlety until the whole thing comes apart like a clod of earth flopping to the ground. I stand there, holding the knife, and look all around me, my mind completely full with the satisfaction of accomplishing a perfect job. And then I wipe the knife and put it away. I have heard the words of Cook Ting and learned how to solve the problems of life. Excellent, said Lord Wen of Hui. The metaphor of the ox represents the stubbornness of the external world before it is tamed. A Taoist does not hold a passive attitude towards the world. You have seen the picture of Lao Tzu riding the ox. The ox does not ride him. In all circumstances, you must be patient and have a clear vision of how to handle any situation. I hope you can do it in the same way Cook Ting deftly carved his ox. Society. Society is a fish pond in which people live. Keep it clean and peaceful. Avoid disturbing it and causing it to be troubled. At the very least, one should choose independence and remain in peace. Undeveloped people cannot do this. Therefore, it is a great spiritual merit to guide others to peace. Society is a fish pond of human lives. Its impulsive leaders wish to drain the water to catch the other fish or poison them so they can catch all of them. But finally, their foolish notions and actions bring about their own self-destruction. Human society was like a fish pond that belonged to no one. It was natural. Then strong people came to call it their pond and make other people as their fish. They became the owners of the pond and were titled as this monarch or that monarch. They assumed the power to eat any fish they wanted. For the most part, monarchy has been destroyed, but now in some regions, collective forces continue to eat the fish. Society is a fish pond that belongs to no one but itself. If an individual in this society retains his sense of being in a fish pond, he is limited to the evolution of a fish. One must attain spiritual independence from one's small society, as well as from the large human society, in order to evolve, develop, and grow. One's spiritual growth may not be the same as the rest of the world, so maintain harmony with society and courageously live in your own unique way. Most of the time, one needs to conceal one's light so as to not irritate the surrounding environment. The world. Before you attain your achievement and enlightenment, the world is a refinery that you can use to refine or consummate yourself. If you do not succeed, you will be smashed by the big pressure of time and turned into ashes. There is no mercy. Do not follow the world. It has so many people at different stages of growth and with different problems. Also, do not make the world follow you. If you do, there are two problems which can occur. First, the expansion of your ego destroys your moral perfection. Second, your dominance harms the subtle organism of the world. However, you can help the world in various ways without extending your ego. The Tao Te Ching gives us 3 guidelines. 1. Help its growth without ruling over it. 2. Do your duty without putting it under your title or control or calling it your own. And 3. Do what is creative and helpful because your own nature is creative and helpful. Do not pursue or obscure your undertakings on the relative sphere and work only for the worldly reward or payment you receive. Virtuous fulfillment is in a different category. Radiate a positive influence in the world through your upright life, and in turn choose virtuous models for your own life. Do not be affected by its slow growth. 3 treasures. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu says, I have 3 treasures. The first is to be kind. Are you kind? Perhaps the problem is not that you're not kind. The problem is that you need to guard yourself from people who might treat you unkindly. However, there is the subtle law that rights all wrongs. You can only live your own life honestly and let people be aware by seeing the mirror of their ugliness. You do not need to attack people or correct them by attacking. That only brings more difficulty. The second treasure of Lao Tzu is, do not look for expansion in material enjoyment or emotional indulgence. This is not a moral idea. It is both practical and beneficial to your life to follow this guidance. The expansion of material enjoyment and the endless expansion of emotional indulgence only hasten the self-destructive processes. Are you wise enough to receive this message? The third treasure of Lao Tzu is not to try to maintain control over other lives. Sometimes we are too assertive, or our sense of self is inflated, and we become opinionated and pass judgment on others. One who does this cannot perceive the subtle law. He only sees the small self. Once a person wishes to control another, he extends his energy beyond himself to others. He loses balance. Intuition. Concentration is a spiritual condition which is important whether you are driving a car or managing your life. Concentration does not mean to concentrate on an external object. It is concentration upon life itself. It is a power of knowing, an intuitive, mystical power which is not obtained by language. It is obtained by keeping your awareness upon the subtle actions that occur inside your thoughts, inside your body, inside the immediate 10 inches or so that surround you, and inside your environment. With this mystical, intuitive power, you know everything, including the sufficiency of your spiritual nature. This is the way to master your life. When you do so, you can allow all things around you to be what they are. In this way, everything can smoothly reach the subtle origin. You join the transformation, but at the same time, you maintain the centeredness which is untouched by transformation. So the true master is in your innermost being. However, whatever you accomplish in your life looks like you have nothing to do with it, and receives recognition from the mind before it attains spiritual awareness. Having intuitive power is attained by relaxing one's nervous system and quieting the active intellect. This masterly energy will spontaneously respond to a situation and give the advice you need. What my mother taught me. Tao is realized in everyday life. When I was a teenager, I gathered a group of young children in my neighborhood as my followers. They liked to sit there listening to what I said, because I had learned the tongue of my teachers. I was proud of that. In doing so, however, I often neglected my duty as a family member. I lived upstairs by myself, and the rest of the family lived downstairs. At mealtime, I made the whole family wait for me to come down because I was in meditation, studying the holy books and scripts, and I continued doing that. One day, I really upset my mother because it was a cold day and the food she had prepared was best eaten warm. I always made my family eat cold food because of my tardiness. My mother thought it was not proper for me to do that, so she decided to give me a lesson. She said to me, "You think quoting lofty phrases from the books is Tao. You keep meditating upstairs in your own room and call it Tao. You think reading these books will make you the friend of the sages. You think it is Tao, but it is not Tao. It is your personal enjoyment. You know, when I was young, I was similar, having fanatic thoughts about Tao, and I also behaved like you. I thought that what was everyday and mundane was really secular and unholy. But then I really was enlightened to know what Tao is. So I gave birth to you 4 children. Since then, I understand that to give birth to children is Tao. To raise them is Tao. To feed them is Tao. To change your diapers is Tao. To make clothes is Tao. Everything in life that you do seriously and find meaning in is Tao. Anything beyond the necessary duty, contribution and positive attitude towards life is not Tao. If I did not think it was Tao, why give birth to you? Why do I keep the daily routine of washing, cutting, cooking, and serving the vegetables and the other food, waiting for all of you to come to eat? I do it because I think it is earnest life. At no time do I cheat myself, so I make a connection with heaven. I am self-respecting. I credit what I am doing. I think my life is righteous. I do not take advantage of anybody. I am not dependent on anybody. I do my part. I do my share. And by living so, I do not need to consider whether I have Tao or need to attain Tao or anything else. You think that just reading and gathering people to listen to you is Tao. That is not practicing Tao. This is what my mother taught me. So if a person truly understands Tao, he does not insist on the formality. He can teach Tao and apply Tao in any occasion in his daily work and life. The fish lives in water, but one day the fish says, "I need to attain Tao. I need to move to the mountain." This is a bad choice for the fish. He cannot live on the mountain. He leaves the Tao to look for some self-expansion. The great path, the great principle of spiritual cultivation is to maintain your balance. maintain your good concentration in everyday life, like holding a bowl of water and walking in the dark. If you do not balance yourself well, if you do not have a strong sense of morality, if you hit anything, you will spill the water. This is the value of spiritual cultivation, enlightening yourself to see through your own darkness, to maintain your balance. This is the first principle a person needs to achieve. Then we can talk about the other higher achievements and development. What is Tao? Is it not clear enough? Tao is integral truth. It is not a projection of a prejudice. It is not a partial truth that needs insistence. It is not a viewpoint or a philosophy. It is the universal, integral truth, the truth of all lives. But subscribing to most religions is like getting on a bus that promises to take the undeveloped souls to a different camp, but it turns out to be a concentration camp. You need to choose a spot to get off, otherwise the end of the ride is where you end your life. It is better to choose spiritual education, which makes you wise and able to manage your life. Learn the universal spiritual education of Tao, which helps you attain spiritual independence. Spiritually, you are self-responsible. Spiritually, you do not need another ruler or authority to set you in good order or to straighten out your life. This you can do yourself by learning from the universal spiritual education of Tao. The original energy of the universe is fathomless and incomprehensible. It is beyond time and beyond space. Contained within it is all existence and non-existence. The ancient sages in one region of the world named it Tao. Tao, as the subtle origin of the universe, brings forth all things, nurtures and sustains them, and then draws them back to return to their subtle source. The primal energy of the universe is undifferentiated, absolutely whole and complete. The other aspect is manifest, perceptible world of multiplicity. Although these aspects appear as two, heaven and earth, the manifest and the unmanifest are in fact one. Tao manifests itself through an active process of self-expression. Creation may be viewed as the process in which the organization of the undifferentiated primal energy occurs. Yang signifies something causing change. Perceptible change is the criterion that lets us infer that an action has taken place. The yin quality describes something tending to transform a momentary phenomenon into a persistent one. It lets fleeting qualities endure and maintains unchanged. Yang implies creation and generation, whereas yin nourishes and supports growth. Yang implies something developing and expanding. It implies action that tends to expand in all directions from its supposed point of origin, whereas yin signifies something contracting, closing in,